Welcome to another episode of the Raw podcast. This is a wellbeing podcast aimed at inspiring you to create and live a life that you absolutely love. Here at Raw, we care deeply about your holistic well-being, so mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, financial, social, your work, and especially your work. Because too many of us walk this tightrope between pressure to perform at work and fighting fatigue from not prioritizing our well-being. We literally work through burnout and sacrifice our health just to get ahead in our careers. But there is another way, and it starts with you. You being your whole self. You making your whole life work. You letting your whole self roar. I am your host, Marilise de Villiers Basson, and today I am delighted to welcome Kath Roberts. Hi, Kath. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
So let me tell you a little bit about Kath. Kath is co-director and founder at Foundation of Colours, and she's business owner at Kath Roberts Limited. Kath is a trained colour therapist and systems coach, an author and international teacher of colour therapy who uses colour to balance energy, restore harmony, and ignite new ways of being. She has a track record of identifying and cultivating talent following an extensive career in leadership for a FTSE 200 company prior to setting up her own coaching and therapeutic practice in 2009. So, Kath, really great to have you. I'm so delighted that our paths have crossed through the Colour Mirrors that was created by Melissa, and we've since been in various containers and events together, and it's really been an absolute delight to get to know you better. So, welcome, and thank you for sharing your insights and wisdom with us today.
You actually for bringing this awareness to light. I think what you're talking about, this topic, is so important, and reaching more people is what it's all about. So I'm delighted to be here.
Brilliant. So I'm going to dive straight in because I always love to hear about you, the person, and really, the Foundation of Colours, which is an organization you co-founded a few years ago. Really, what was your vision and inspiration behind it?
So it was a natural evolution, in fact, and it was really based around some time we had with the international community of colour teachers and practitioners. And what became clear to us is that actually there's limited understanding about the world of colour therapy and also the therapeutic response that is available, in fact, if we take it into more of a coaching or a business arena. And because my background was predominantly business, and through that coaching lens and through a systemic understanding, it just made great sense to say, okay, it's time now for us to perhaps bring together some more research to create some experiential tools that can create these new states of thinking and ways of being, and that will bring greater validity to the transformative impact that colour can have in the wider world. Because we see at the foundation an opportunity, if you like, to bridge science and that, the hard data and those that want the grounded evidence with the world of spirituality, those that know and have experienced these heightened states and actually have had a taste that there's more to life than can be met by the five senses. So we felt that actually we've got a role to play and that colour is the ideal bridge, because we talk about colour being a roadmap to consciousness. So colour is healing and working on us on multiple levels, mentally and emotionally and physically and spiritually, in fact. And so if we can actually bring more informed research and information to the business world, then we can start to help businesses understand how they're individually and collectively influencing one another every day, day in, day out. And environment is influenced by the collective intelligence of the individuals that make it up. So the more conscious we become, the more we affect that change in a positive and a harmonious way.
That's so beautiful. And, I honestly, I'm sort of probably entry level when it comes to understanding this whole world of color. And it has opened a whole new world for me. And it just made sense at a sort of very deep, as you say, spiritual level. And, for anybody that's kind of listening or watching, it's a very, exploratory, it opens up so much new stuff, but it's not something I think we traditionally were exposed to. And so, Kath, for anybody that's sort of listening or watching and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm a little bit skeptical here, and I
Yes.
know also, you've published a book, Colorful Boardrooms, a few
That's
years
it.
ago. And it would be really just great to sort of understand how you bridge the kind of the science and the data with the spirituality and the spiritual element of this.
So let's first start with us as human beings and our core natures. We understand, the majority of us, that of course we're not just these physical hunks of meat, that we've got a part of us that feels things deeply, a part of us that thinks on quite a high level, and divorced from the animal kingdom in that we've got these higher faculties. So the ability to reason beyond that just instinctive part of us. And then we've got what's known as this spiritual part of us. Now, some people may say, well, I don't know what you're talking about with regard to that. But I would always say, well, go back in a time in your life where you thought that anything was possible and you had a dream. That's your spirit calling you to move forward. Or at a time in your life when your spirit felt crushed for whatever reason, due to pain, emotional pain, trauma, which all of us are not going to get through life without experiencing some aspect of that, because life is about mountains and valleys. And so we've got all of these different facets, okay? And the way to understand ourselves is that first and foremost, we have a third dimensional body and a fourth dimensional energy field. And if you think about the energy field, all of us will understand it. Sometimes when we brush our hair and we get an electric shock, that's us connecting with our electromagnetic field. Or if we brush past somebody, we can sometimes feel that. So we're feeling that etheric layer of energy that is present in each and every one of us. The energy field holds all the information of our mind. The mind, if you like, is the software stored in the energy field. It's not the brain. The brain is the hardware. So the mind is talking to the brain, and the brain is acting as a receiving station for information. So the truth is, and the ancients have told us this since time immemorial, and scientists have confirmed this through quantum physics, we do not see the world as it is. We see the world as we are, as we think. So we become. Perception is everything.
Yes.
And is it? Because we are thinking creatures and feeling creatures. And we have to get those two aspects of ourself into alignment in order for us to feel congruent and whole in our centers. So it's brilliant if you're intellectually very, very bright. And I used to chase that for a very long time and read and get qualifications and, tie yourself up in knots trying to understand things. But at the end of the day, that doesn't get you the worthwhile, meaningful life, does it? We all yearn to have, a partner who gets us, understands us, a family that we can connect to, a tribe that we feel associated in with. So both of these facets of ourselves are truly important. And part of our job, I suppose, here in the University of Life, our school of life down here on planet Earth, is to start to make sense of ourselves from these different aspects, our mental, intellectual self, our emotional self, our spiritual self, and the physical body. It's all got to be integrated in the physical body because, of course, we're nothing without our health and well-being, are we? So we have to be well physically to move the body and to start to take action that is for our highest purpose. So our spirit wants us to soar high. It wants us to create a life of meaning and purpose. Our emotional self is looking for, as we say, that connection. And our mental self is seeking clarity and understanding. So they're all different facets. So this fourth dimensional energy field, if there is no trauma in that energy field, in other words, we're totally coherent. So what we think, what we feel is completely in harmony. Our words, our deeds, and our actions fall into alignment. We get in harmony with the unified field. So our biofield, our energy field, then starts to harmonize and we flow. So we have a thought, and before we know it, somebody is confirming that thought for us. And this is how intuition, isn't it? The sixth sense works. It's that knowing space, is that higher mind.
Yes.
And if we can live from that place, we know stuff without having to think it. It just is. So that's about true alignment. When we're in true alignment, we've moved from this place, the head, and we've moved into the body wisdom, the heart. And the heart knows everything. And the heart has 60 times more energy than the mind. So we've got to get out of our minds in order to get into our heart centers, in order to become wiser, more intentional, and therefore things begin to start to fall into alignment. Now, that was a really long answer to your question, and I think I went off in numerous tracks, but hopefully I've given you some understanding. Another way to look at this through color, very, very simply, think of the physical body as red and think of it as a shape of the square. Because right back through human nature, we've got the psychology of color that's evolved through human consciousness. Think of the mind as the triangle, looking up, reaching up for inspiration and understanding, and it's yellow, representing also the quality of air, and the red square representing the quality of fire, let's say, in us. And then think of the spirit as the circle and the color blue, or eternal, ever present. So even when we leave the body, the spirit lives on in consciousness, in energy terms. If you put all of those three together, you've got what's known as the macabre. And the macabre is actually a spiritual term for activating our energy field, waking the soul up to its truth, its understanding, its awareness that it's not separate to its environment, and we're not separate from one another. And when we start to get on the path, the spiritual path of the soul, and start to understand that really we're energy, we're light, we're frequency, vibration, then we start to match with other people at the same vibrational frequency as magic starts to unfold on our path. And so another way to add those aspects is if we add blue, red, and yellow, we add green to it. Green represents the heart, actually. And that's the truth of it. We've got to get out of our heads. We've got to get into our hearts. And actually, we add also the other spiritual component of violet. And violet shows us that we're one big family, all connected at this unified field, this higher level of spiritual understanding. So when we've got even those 5 color components, we start to understand that what science has taught us, we're influencing matter all of the time. We're creating at the spiritual level through our thoughts, and we infuse our thoughts with feelings, and they in turn create matter. Things start to materialize on our physical plane of existence. And
Mhm.
quantum physics teaches us this, yeah, that we're just energy in a pool, a soup of universal energy, and we need to get into flow with those wavelengths.
This is absolutely amazing, and I mean, I won't pretend to understand quantum physics, but the way that you have just made it so simple and easy to understand, that is so super powerful. And I guess that's really the mission for you: is how do you help people who are in very, corporate business settings really
Yes.
make the transition? And so I just love how you've kind of really like tangibly explained it and sort of landed it. But yeah, I am for one, I'm going to have to listen to all of that maybe a few times again, because I mean it's just mind blowing and heart blowing stuff. And I guess you and I, we do a ton of work in this space, and lots of people and people listening and watching probably have only really dipped their toe in. So I also just want to say to you, this is about opening up, cracking open, and being curious and being open to what's possible. And I just love that you've presenced it, but also we're normalizing the conversation. So we talk about well-being, we talk about holistic well-being, and I think increasingly in work settings, I don't think, well-being is a reward for working hard. It is actually the foundation of being able to show up and do meaningful work and being able to thrive. So we really have to sort of almost like flip our relationship with well-being on the head, and really start looking at these more spiritual disciplines as well. So I love how you have made that connection and that bridge in the last decade or so. I'm curious to know a little bit about your background and sort of, I know you come from a corporate environment
Yes.
and 5,200 companies. So tell us a little bit more about you and what's made you shift in the way that you did.
Yeah, I think that's such it's an important question actually for the listeners to understand, because this is not just something that I've intellectualized, it's something I've lived and experienced through, sometimes pain and suffering, in fact. And so let's go back. So the first time that you might say I woke up at age 27 in a spiritual sense, woke up to the knowledge and awareness that I was more than just this physical body with this thinking part of myself, and a felt sense that the spirit in me knew that there was something more to life than I can be found via those five senses. You see, I had a near-death experience, and these are more common than we would perhaps appreciate. We don't talk about these things. I certainly didn't at that time in my life. I didn't understand it, first and foremost. It took me many years later before I truly understood it and could actually talk about it without people thinking, what the hell is wrong with her? And I'd had a series of kidney infections, in fact, water infections. And I think that was quite fascinating in itself, because it was at a time in my life where I was in emotional conflict, in fact, over a relationship. So that was showing up as presence in my body, that there was something not right with my emotions, and I was overriding my emotions, ignoring my emotions, keeping on working. This is what we do a lot in the business world, over intellectualizing everything. And actually, my body didn't feel that at all. So I just kept going, kept going. Back in those days, they gave you antibiotics. Well, we've learned, haven't we, through modern science, that's not always a great thing these days, because it depletes the immune system. Long story short, I end up in hospital with an acute kidney, what they thought poisoning. I had a critical fever and was in and out of consciousness. And all I can tell you is I went in on a stretcher. The next time I'm awake, I am observing my body from above myself, and all the doctors flapping around me trying to get my temperature down. I go through a few things, which will be common to some of the viewers who've ever read anything about near-death experiences, about seeing the light, being drawn, not wanting to come back. And then the next thing I'm waking up in my body, feeling exhausted. My temperature's come down, but I'm kind of saturated and I'm exhausted. I spend 17 days in hospital. I leave the hospital a stone and a half lighter, completely clear. And I'd had ultra scans for the kidney and everything. They thought at one point I'd passed a kidney, a stone. They couldn't find anything. And I'd have these medical doctors round me most mornings trying to ask me questions to fathom out how this medical miracle had happened. Excuse me. And so that's when I knew that we could do these things, and that there was more to life, and it set me on a path. But I was still sleepwalking through life in that traditional sense of going to work, being achievement orientated, doing the career thing. And then I had a next big wake up call, which came at 35, and I lost my father. He died of cancer. He'd had bone cancer, and it was quite a long and debilitating disease. And it broke my heart because I had a very, very strong relationship with my dad. Now, I think if you can sit with grief and be with grief for long enough, then the other side of that, it opens you up. And that's what happened. It opened me up. And everything in my life felt inconsequential to that loss, or to that connection. I was successful, by 40, I was on the UK board. I could have what I wanted materially. I had a lovely lifestyle, and yet nothing touched me. I felt restless. I felt unfulfilled. And I think, again, a lot of viewers and listeners will probably relate to that. And I think, that's a phenomenon that's happening more and more in the West, because we're getting knowledge, we're acquiring things, but actually we're recognizing that actually what's important is the other stuff. So it's not just about work, but it's what kind of work, it's how we look after ourselves, it's what kind of connections that we have. So that was the second wake-up call, and this sense of restlessness. So I left the organization because I'd made a whole team redundant. In fact, it was it was autumn 2008, and we were we were going into recession in the UK, and I'd sensed it at the beginning of 2008 that the market wasn't good, and I was stuck. I mean, here's a lovely, synchronous story for you. I'm basically on Lime Street Station trying to get out, to get the train back to London, having made the team redundant, feeling completely miserable about what I'd just put them through and having to do that. And there was a signal failure and we couldn't get out of the station. So I go into a bookshop and I'm thinking, I'll go get myself something to read, sit down, have a coffee. And I'm looking at the bookshelf and there's a book standing out on the top shelf. I think it's Marshall Goldsmith. Anyway, What Got You There Won't Get You Here, or whatever that title is. And it just really spoke to me of I'm done with this place. I'm done with corporate life. The environment doesn't feed me. I needed more creativity. I needed to feel alive, and I was burnt out. And that's the truth of it. I think most corporate executives get burnt out because we can't do it the way we used to do it. And this is the paradigm shift that's been apparent and still needs to go forward. So I lost a bit of myself in that organization and trying to do everything. And that was, that wake up. So I left and I set up a coaching business, and I started to find my joy again and my soul work and my meaning and purpose. And that's the truth of it. So now, I work in bursts. I do work that fills me up, that lights me up, that makes a difference in people's lives, or it feels to me like it's making the difference. And I found that my creativity has come to the fore. And I think colour was a phenomenal part of that jigsaw, in fact. Beautiful. Because I now understand that we're all truly creative beings, and we each have creativity expressed in different ways, don't we? I mean, you and I write, but Other people may paint. Other people find their creativity in making food, in interior design space, and whatever that might be. But we all have these gifts.
Yeah.
And the more we are expressing those facets of ourselves, the more energy we have, the more well-being we're in, and the more impact we have on others, because we're coming from our joy states, aren't we? As opposed to our burnt out, exhausted states.
So beautiful. And, I listen to you, I hear your story. Your story is my story, is, so many people, and I'm sure someone listening's story as well, someone who has to hear this today, and, reaching that point of enough is enough, that moment where you just like, this cannot continue. And despite you saying all the the material achievements, the role, the titles, everything, you feel empty and you have a soul ache. And that's a really, really big warning sign. And it's usually with body screaming, so I'm like, it starts with little whispers, but then the body starts shouting and screaming, and it will tell you, and it will stop you if you keep ignoring it. So thank you for really sharing so vulnerably and so openly. I really appreciate that. And it's so beautiful that we get to go on that sort of journey to self-discovery. And I think anybody that's listening who is kind of feeling at that point where you're like, I'm actually sacrificing my dreams, yes, I've got all these things and material things in my life, but actually at the end of the day, I just do not feel alive. I recently wrote a blog, which I'm actually just about to publish, and I might do a little plug as well, because I'm issuing a work wellbeing research study, which I'm inviting people to complete, which is reimagining the way we look at well-being, especially in the workplace, and really looking at more holistic well-being, and saying the old ways don't work anymore, and that we've got to really rethink how we define, like, work-life balance isn't a thing. Work is life and life is work, and it's it's a thing, and we all do life by enjoying what we do in terms of work, in terms of our contribution. So yeah, I will put the link to the survey in the show notes, because anybody that would love to participate in the survey, I would so appreciate that. But to come back to the thing I want to say about, when you have that wake up call, when you have that moment, when you know something's got to shift, right? It's something that Steve Jobs said at a very famous speech he did to Stanford University graduates, where he said that for 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if this was my last day on this planet, would I love what I do? Would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And he said that if the answer is no for too many days in a row, then I know that something's got to change. And I think for me, that is so brave and courageous. And so he finishes that speech saying, stay hungry, stay foolish, So I think it's really like the ability to really then listening to your heart. You mentioned that earlier, it's like dropping from the head into the heart, and really, truly being honest with yourself, holding that mirror up, and being honest with yourself.
No, I would also add, it's about being able to look in the mirror and liking what you do, liking yourself for the work that you do. And so often, it's not sufficient to say I was just following orders or it was the environment. And this is where, brave, courageous leadership needs to come in. And that's why this work is so important, because without doing the inner work, we get pulled by the collective tribe, by the ruling, the ways of the road of corporate environments, the needing to kind of fit into the raison d'etre of how it's always been. And we need brave leaders to say, no, actually, I'm doing it this way. And there's a more inspiring form of leadership that's apparent. And going back to the colour and why colour can actually cut through it all. Like when you're a coach and you're coaching someone and of course, there's absolute value in hearing somebody's story. Because, of course, you're holding space for a client who needs to talk not only into the why of what's happened, but, unpack the emotional territory, of course. But at the end of the day, colour cuts through all of that so quickly so that people start to take action much faster because they see their shadow, their beliefs, their behaviours, their patterns reflected back to them through the lens of colour as they're picking. Because my system, I work with this system called Colour Mirrors, and the clue is in the title. It's mirroring back to you what your body or your mind and spirit need in any given moment. And it's reminding us of our highest potential. As you say, Marilise, the dream inside. What's the dream? Firstly, do I have a dream or I'm just following the pack, the flock? And actually, if I allowed myself the space to be, then what's the next dream that wants to be born inside of me? And because we've been living more in the world at large from this logical mind space, this doing, this, and again in the workspace that falls into give me evidence, it's all about productivity, it's all about the profit. Well, hey, it isn't, because sustainable working, businesses that have proven time and time again, that they've got something that customers want, they're sustainable, they think about these spiritual aspects such as their purpose, such as how do we look after truly our people and show that we care in a way that's about the greater humanity as opposed to working them to death, frankly.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so that's a really beautiful sort of pivot into leaders and, the role that leaders play in terms of culture, in terms of well-being cultures, well-being leadership, psychological safety, all the things that you so passionately speak about. And I know you like me very much, talk about and live the inside out philosophy, so we're transforming leadership from the inside out. And it sort of talks to, everything that you've just kind of been sharing with us, but just grounded for us just in terms of, how to transform
How's it
leadership
work?
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
If we go back to this understanding about the mind, we've got three minds. We've got a conscious mind, we've got a subconscious mind, we've got an unconscious mind. Let's call the unconscious mind the genius mind, where all answers exist and where we can tap into that pool of awareness of the unified field where all thoughts have ever been thought, where we ride on the back of the giants who've gone before us. And so we have that understanding. Let's call one, the logical mind, the conscious mind, the head. The mind of, fact, reason, and evidence. Let's call the subconscious mind a place of the heart, if you like, or at least the gateway to the heart. It, in fact, houses our patterns, our behaviours, and our feelings. But that's residing in the body in the felt sense through the heart as the gateway. And that's feminine, in fact, actually. And, the logical mind's masculine. So that's another way to understand it. We've each got masculine energy and feminine energy. And our job in this lifetime is to balance those two aspects of the self. And I always say this, I always make this apology to the masculine. I'm never having a go at the masculine. I love men. And my masculine energy has got me to places that my feminine energy could never have got me. The masculine energy is giving form to the dream. The masculine energy is bringing action and momentum to our dream. It's building the business plan. If you think about it in a relationship, the woman says, just hear me out. And the man says, sure, love, I just like, how can I make your dreams a reality? That's the truth of how the two marry together. But we need time in the subconscious to be able to dive deep into the unconscious mind, which knows. It knows this, and that's where the soul resides, and the genius mind. It will take us to places faster and easier than the other two. So we don't need to continue the suffering by not listening enough to our heart's intention, or killing the dream before it's arrived, because that part of us goes, but who am I to think that I'm good enough or worthy enough or bright enough or clever enough? Or the masculine will kill it because it keeps saying, but how am I going to make that dream a reality? And our job is not to think about the how. Our job is to dive into that deeper part of ourselves, work out what the dream is, and then allow the dream to potentialize. Because we think about the dream, we feel the dream. We're an electromagnetic field. Thoughts are electrical, feelings are magnetic. And then things start to happen. So it's like living life on a travelator. You know, when you're at the airport and you're walking on a travelator, that for me is how the last 15 years of my life have been versus the first, 42, frankly.
So beautiful. And I absolutely love, love, love how it's so, I mean, I do a lot of this work as well. And just to hear you, the way that you talk about it and the way you describe it is so phenomenal. And I love it. So I just want to really like thank you for I always say I learn probably the most with these conversations. They're always for me first, so I really appreciate and am so grateful for these wisdom perspectives and just beautiful energy that you are bringing to this conversation. Thank you, Kath.
Well, I can feel it. You have such a big heart. I feel it. So yeah, I can connect to that too.
So cool. I mean, this is just very, very, very cool. I love it. I love it when these things happen. Um, okay, so really, we talked a little bit about the changing nature of work. We talked about the impact on leadership, and I just would love to explore that a little bit more, and really from a perspective of what are some of the practical things leaders can do. And I think, let's just not label someone a leader in the traditional context. We all are leaders. We all show up every day as a version of ourselves, and we all can choose to show up as leaders in different contexts. So you don't have to formally have the role title leader. So let's just put that out there. But then how do we transform? And especially this as in a work setting, and bearing in mind that the nature of work has changed so tremendously in the recent years as well. What
Yeah,
what can people do? What can people
yeah.
tangibly do?
I think you touch on something really interesting, because I think we can often get completely overwhelmed by, what's the size of it, and can I, little me, have an impact on the whole? Well, you're already having an impact on the whole every day, with every thought and every feeling and the energy. You're perfuming a room, any environment, in your family space, in your workspace. So think about it that way. You're affecting all of the time. So the more intentional we get with the impact we want to have, start small, one conversation, one acknowledgement of appreciation, noticing the small things that that haven't been noticed. That is starting to have a ripple effect and will carry, because energy does. We notice when we've been in environments where we feel drained, and where we start to have a conversation with somebody who lifts us up, who inspires us. What does it mean to be inspired? It means to be in our spirit. So as leaders, what can we do to support ourselves being in our spirit? How are we taking care of ourselves that's nurturing our spirit, so that we can have a positive impact on others, as opposed to the negative impact of, you need to work harder, you need to stay late, the productivity's down, or what have you? That ain't going to inspire anybody. And again, we talk that language out. We speak our words into existence. So notice the thoughts that you're holding. Notice where those come from and the beliefs around that. Are they real? Or are they just the same old thoughts that you've been having all of the time that we need to shift? Because as we shift our thoughts, we shift how we're feeling. As we move the body, that creates obviously space in the body for different thoughts to come in. So isn't it, it's all straightforward and common sense, but of course, common sense is hardly common practice, and we have to go back. So when you were talking about what's shifting in the world or business, I want to tell you a little bit about when I was in recruitment in the 1990s, the early 1990s in the UK. That was another economic downturn. And let me tell you, people were being made redundant left, right, and centre. So, of course, what do you tend to see in cultures? Fear is the predominant emotion. I might lose my job. How am I going to get another job? And so they were quite depressing workplaces back in the early 90s for obvious reasons. We basically started to have a temporary and a contracts market come into being. We were following an American model that had pretty much been self-evident many years prior. That was interesting in itself because nobody really wanted to be a temp or a contractor. They really wanted full-time work because they felt they were like second-class citizens. If we fast forward now 30 years, because that's really all it's taken, people are actively wanting to embrace contracting work, independence, to explore portfolio working in different ways. Well, why is that? Well, it's because we're different, right? We've come through COVID, and COVID shifted us fundamentally because we had a taste of what it feels like to work at home without all the distractions and to be able to concentrate and have creative flow. We learn how to start to think more rather than we're thinking about work-life balance, but to think about work-life integration. Wouldn't it be cool if I could live in Portugal or, and work from my laptop and work it maybe for spurts, but then for 3 months of the year not have to work? What if I didn't have to go into the office? So we're not going back to the old world in leadership terms of control and command and logic and reason and give me the evidence, and it's all about the money. Of course we have to make money, but we're moving more to the feminization of business, let's say, as a whole, where we value humanity, where we start to recognize that actually sustainable productivity and performance is coming from work-life integration. It's coming from great self-care. And that self-care carries through all those different levels of where we started full circle. So how do I look after myself physically? Most of us know that now, right? We know if we drink too much and we don't get enough sleep and sunshine and we feed our body with too much sugar, then we're heading for heart attack material. In terms of the emotional, it's great to have lots of money and a fabulous job and the things that come with that. But if we don't give time to the family and to the children and to watch our kids growing up, at the end of the day, there's that lovely longitudinal study by Harvard, the 100-year study. And I mean, it boils down to this. Men at the end of their life generally say this: I wished I'd spent more time with my family and my loved ones. And do you know what the women say? I wished I'd cared less about what people think of me and just done it. And I think that speaks to both the masculine and the feminine. So this feminization of business is happening and it's underway. And so that is facilitating more empowered cultures and more care and looking at things more holistically. So your work speaks right to the heart of that, doesn't it? As mine does. And as starting to understand, in order for us to to create cultures that people want to work in and grow up in and bring on other people in, then we want to see psychological safety at play. And what does that take? You know, those are those invisible cues that are going on, because we are multisensory and we have got this sixth sense, and we can walk into a room and know whether there's been a negative and energy or something's off. We know when a leader expresses something in a certain way, they're not really looking for the truth, they're looking for you to tell them what they want to hear. And so that means we hold back probably with the truth. But actually, the more we all start to express the truth, the more that starts to shift and we speak into that place. So, and I think, leaders start because leaders role model the kind of behavior that we want to see in the workplace. So gone are the days when we say one thing and do another and it be okay. It's not okay. And that has
Yes.
to shift. Have I spoken
Beautiful.
enough into that for you?
Beautiful. And this is the true masterclass. Like, I love how you presencing with us, from the beginning, the intentionality, being very, very intentional, and that it starts small, really, really tiny, tiny little steps, have big ripples. And I often say, the small things are not the big things. The small things are everything. Because it really does start. And as you say, that sort of whole culture of feminization, for want of a better word. I didn't actually know that was a word, but I love how you've kind of given us the contrast and the importance of balance between the masculine and the feminine, and sort of really, again, it's a balance thing, it's a normalization thing. It's just really, and now suddenly we can start really having a conversation about, and I love that you've come right back to the conversation and speaking up, and having the courage to speak up, but to speak up authentically. And if that means you've got to be vulnerable, then, still do it. And recognizing that leaders create that space for people to feel safe to speak up.
I mean, if I go back to, the early 2000s, you would leave your emotions outside of the boardroom. It was not allowed. It was, you were looked at in a despicable way, that you could possibly feel anything or be sensitive to. Whereas now, look what's changed. I mean, yes, there's so much still to change, but there'll be people, leaders here who will acknowledge, that there was somebody, a leader that they saw, role model the fact that they would be late in the office, or they wouldn't be present or committing to that particular meeting or whatever it might be, and were entrusting them because it was their kids' school play, or they wanted to spend time with the child. And that was important. And that's like setting that tone. And it's a permission of allowance. And that's when, because people, as I say, they watch more what you do, because
Yes.
action speaks louder than words. Not that words they are important, but the actions speak, don't they, on so many levels. And then people breathe more easily, because it's like, oh my God, he's a human being or she's a human being, and it's okay. They've got families, they've got lives. And we're
So
modeling that in society, that actually, do we truly care about our people or our parents, where we've got to go and find the time to, look after them? So
yes.
businesses are responding better to those things, but I still think, there's work to do, and it takes
Yeah.
time. But
And it's why
integration, well, just
yes.
going to
Yeah.
say, we've come full circle, and it's what you were talking about earlier. We used to talk all the time in recruitment terms about work-life balance. Now that's totally out, and work-life integration. And as we understand that we're integrated units and we're working on all of those aspects of ourselves, we can kind of get that our environments reflect that back to us. And there is no separation. So what's called for in leaders is to be truly authentic, to be themselves, to be vulnerable, and,
Yes.
not to be robots.
Beautiful, beautiful. And, this is so much, you've given me so much inspiration. So, as you know, I'm currently writing my second book, More, MOAR, exclamation mark. And it's all about making work magic inside and out. And it's really so
Fantastic.
beautiful, so beautiful. All the aligned thinking that you're bringing and what I'll be exploring, or what I am exploring in the book as well. So yeah, I mean, this is amazing, and I can carry on and carry on and carry on. We are at the end of our time together. Really, really fantastic session. And I really love how you've made something that can feel so woo-woo and so, fluffy, so
Yes.
tangible, and even bringing in quantum physics, which is phenomenal, and explaining it in a way which is just so accessible. And that's the power, I think, the power of bringing the message and bringing your unique, authentic message to the world. And I want to thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you. And I can't wait to read your book.
Yes, it's due for published by December 2025. So I'm making really, really good progress with it as well. So it's exciting. I am excited, and I think the work wellbeing study, which I'm publishing now and asking people to complete, is really going to provide some real tangible data, and back up a lot of the perspectives and the points of view. So I'm very, very much looking forward to that. When people want to get in touch with you, it's probably best to get in touch through LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn is the easy, obvious,
Yeah.
business network tool, isn't it? So yeah, I would recommend that.
I know you're on Instagram as well. So if you're an Instagrammer, Kath is on there as well. And obviously her website is www.kath-roberts.com. So you can check her out. I mean, the color mirrors system is phenomenal. And yeah, I'm definitely still going to pursue becoming a teacher myself in that space. It's early days for me, as I said, but you've been walking this path with Melissa and that community for a very, very long time. So I'm, for one, looking forward very much to continuing that journey with all of you beautiful souls. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today and for listening in, for watching. And really, I am so grateful that you're part of this community, and that you come back, and that you come and listen to us, and listen to the perspectives that we share. This is meant to be a safe space, and if you have any thoughts, give us feedback. Get in touch with me if you would love to have a conversation. But this is all about you roaring every day, standing in your power and having the courage to speak your truth, to authentically speak your truth, and to really live your purpose every single day. So until next time, do just that. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kath. Really appreciate you.
You and you.